Hello Canadians and cold climate plant people. How are you guys doing today? If you're new around here, my name's Ashley and I'm a soil scientist with a plant science minor. And on this channel, I like to take that science and apply it to all things gardening, but also plant care. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about alocasias and just how naughty and dramatic they can be. So in this video, we're going to be going over common issues you may experience and as well the solutions to these issues. At the very end of the video, I'm going to be showing you my collection of alocasias. I have quite a few, and I'm just going to give you the story on each one of them, what I experienced with each one of them, and how I remedied it. I have never had an alocasia that I have not had a drama issue with. To put that into perspective, I will be inserting some photos today of a beautiful black beauty, and that is a plant from Connor, one of the subscribers on the channel. He was awesome enough to reach out on Instagram and send me a DM with photos explaining what was going on with his plant. I was asking for help. I love these questions, and sometimes they get featured on a video all to themselves. The reason today's video on alocasias and colocasias is getting featured on its own video is because Connor literally reached out, and within less than 12 hours, Psych Truth Seeker, who's also been a very long time subscriber, was watching some of my older videos and was debating purchasing a colocasia or an alocasia. You're getting an alocasia, I'm pretty sure. You said Regal Shield, so it's alocasia. And I thought, if 2 viewers in less than 12 hours are asking questions about these plants, then this must be a video we need to do. So if you are having issues with alocasias, colocasias, you're thinking about buying them, or you're just not getting big leaves, then this video is for you. I will put some timestamps below because I have intentions for this video to be nice and long and juicy. So let's just dive straight into it. But first, we officially have merch. So if you've been on this channel long enough, you've probably realized people are constantly asking or DMing me about how to donate and support the channel. And you've all suggested Patreon, but I don't like taking money from people without giving something in return. So I thought the middle road was merch. So we're doing masks, t-shirts, tank tops, long sleeves, bunny hugs, you name it. And this is what it looks like. It was made by my friend Cheryl. She has a company that literally designs this sort of stuff, and she prints it out, and she does an awesome job. But it says on it, science, education, and plants. It says gardening in Canada. It has a beaker with molecular structures in it, and then it has a tomato plant coming out the top with a YouTube symbol. So I'm super excited about it. I'm super in love with it. It is fall and it is so nice and cozy, and I'm in love with it so much. I'm probably gonna use it for every single video going forward. So get used to the new look. I like to call it my inner leprechaun look. Yeah, so I feel like a giant leprechaun, but I really like the color green. So there is other colors, I can promise you. There's white, for example, if you don't want to look like a leprechaun. But you probably won't, because you don't have the red hair thing going on, just I do. Anyways, let's just jump right into this. To put this into perspective, my relationship with alocasia, you guys know I do show notes because I don't want to forget anything when I do my videos for you. But I literally put alocasia back my life on the top of this thing. So I've made a lot of sacrifices to the alocasia gods over the years. It's been a 10-year love-hate between me and alocasias, but I feel like I probably have a lot of experience to talk about these wonderful, beautiful, but drama queen type plants. So of course we got to start off with, what's the difference between an alocasia and a colocasia? Well, both of them are from the Araceae family. Now that means they have very similar care, and they kind of throw the same fits, especially when it comes to changes in environment, big leaves versus small leaves, leaves dying off, all that fun stuff. A very common way to identify these is that alocasias sit upright and colocasias collapse, so they go down. I always like to use that reference, colocasia collapse. This isn't always the case. With the alocasias, it is said that the petiole transforms into the leaf, and that is the case with the Californian alocasia that I have behind me. I'll show you a close-up shot of that. That is the case for that plant. However, that isn't always the case. There's a lot of alocasias where the petiole actually meets or sits on top of the leaf. And they say that alocasias are actually the only ones where the petiole sits on top of the leaf. That is not always the case. That is my experience. Sometimes it's the opposite. This Regal Shield's a really good example. The petiole is sitting on top of the leaf. So we'll get into this plant later. So I wouldn't use that as necessarily a way to identify the plant. Same with the pointing up, pointing down. I wouldn't actually use that to identify alocasia or colocasia either. Typically, the root system is the way to go. Colocasias very commonly are grown from bulbs, so it's not uncommon to find these in the bulb section of the greenhouse in the spring. Whereas colocasia or alocasias are more of a tuberous or a rhizome type plants. So they actually have a green fleshy rhizome typically that they grow from, or they have a tuber type organ that they grow from. So a stingray alocasia, for example, has a tuber, and then a velvet Elvis, for example, has a rhizome. So let's start off with Connor's situation. Connor right now has a lot of stems, petioles that are falling over, and then he has kind of a yellowing or a changing of color on the leaves, which obviously is concerning for Connor, but this is very normal when it comes to colocasias and alocasias and bringing them home. These guys do not like changes in the environment whatsoever. And the reason for that is because they have a very tropical type vibe to them, and their entire structure is very tropical itself. When I say that, I mean that the stomata in the plant, even all the way to the mesophyll of the plant, and then the inner vacuole, the water holding ability of the plant, is all very different than something like a monstera, a cacti, or pretty much any other tropical plant you could have in your collection. Anyone who's been here long enough is going to know what I'm talking about, but I have to say it again because it's very important when we're talking about these plants in particular. These stems are very, very fleshy. If you look at these close, and I can try to get you guys a close-up, you can almost see the cellular structure inside these plants, and what you're seeing is actually almost like the vacuole of the cell. The vacuole is what holds the turgor pressure, and when the turgor pressure is not at an ample level, what ends up happening is the petiole flops over. Same thing with the leaves themselves. They will yellow, they will crisp up if the stomata and the guard cells aren't even able to pivot properly or fast enough once it gets into your home, which seems to always be the case in my experience. If you put these into a humid environment, if you put them into a room full of plants, they will be all right. Or if you live in an environment that is naturally humid and warm, you will be okay. However, if you are new to plants, these are not a great starter plant to go with. What you will notice right off the bat is you will get that yellowing, that crisping of the leaf. What's happening there is our guard cells aren't snapping shut fast enough, and our stomata are remaining open. When our stomata remains open, our plant is respiring, and so when it respires, it's going to lose moisture. That means the plant is not in balance. It's not taking up water at the same speed it needs to replenish the leaves, which is what causes the browning effect. When the petioles are flopping over, it's something very similar to that. What we're losing is something called turgor pressure. Turgor pressure is the water pressure within a structure within the plant cell called the vacuole. When our vacuole doesn't have proper turgor pressure, our petioles will flop down. Again, this is because the plant is not able to pivot fast enough with its guard cells and its stomata set up to be able to stay upright. So it will flop over. Once it flops over, it can't photosynthesize properly, and it's just kind of a downward spiral from there. What I suggest doing and what I suggest Connor do is actually cut these leaves off. If they are completely flat out, it's time to go. They're not doing anything for the plant, they're actually just harming it. So you're gonna wanna cut those leaves off. If you end up with no leaves, do not worry about it. We'll get into that a little bit later. But that is very normal for these plants, especially if they're not able to change from the environment that they were in. I find the best case scenario, the best place to buy these from is actually a plant shop. If they come from inside a building rather than a greenhouse, there is a slightly better chance of them being able to survive. If they're coming from a very humid area, a place packed with plants, I suggest putting a humidifier beside them or some sort of pebble tray to try to counteract that reaction as much as possible. The second issue that I have with these guys is they are mealy bug central. And while it doesn't matter when you have a plant like this guy who doesn't have, he doesn't have the branches coming off of him right now. He's not, zigzagging off. It's just one big stem. This isn't a big deal. This I can deal with and I can treat properly. However, with this little guy, for example, this little stingray, see how he's V'ing off, and you'll notice that this leaf here is kind of encompassing or wrapping this leaf here. And when you get multiple leaves, you end up with multiple encasements where the petioles are kind of reaching around each other and hugging each other. And that's where the mealybugs hang out. They really like to hang out in there. So you can use insecticidal soap on these. I find that they don't react very well. In my experience, they kind of spaz out. And again, you can lose leaves because of it. And I honestly think the reason is that because it's a tropical plant and it's not just any tropical plant, it's a moisture-loving tropical plant, it's a humidity-loving tropical plant. Those stomatas are very, very, there's lots of them. There's lots of stomata, and those stomata cells are very, very large. And so it's able to absorb almost anything. So if you start spraying hydrogen peroxide or alcohol or insecticidal soap, especially on the bottom side of the leaf, it's probably going to get sucked up into the leaf itself. This is my experience. They do not react well to insecticidal soap. So what I like to do is I like to use diatomaceous earth. I'll leave an Amazon affiliate link for that down below. And then I'll also leave a link for these babies right here. These are nematodes. You cannot see the nematodes. I can do a whole video on this. They look like eggs. They're not eggs. They're just gel. So they don't have to be kept in the refrigerator or anything. Ta-da! And they kind of look like jelly. And you just stir these on your cupboard, literally, and you wet them, and you end up with little critters in your soil that actually eat the bugs of fungus gnats, mealybugs, you name it. They will consume them. You don't need much of this. This treats up to 50 pots. Yeah, and 50 big pots. This will last me a really long time. It does have an expiry date, so keep that in mind. The expiry date is 6 months from pretty much the date I purchased this. So yeah, it works really, really well. And like I said, it eats all the eggs, it eats all the little bugs. So it's a great preventative measure. The harmless ones and the ones that are harmful. So it'll eat fungus gnats, even though fungus gnats don't hurt anything. They're very irritating to have in your home. You cannot see these. They're nematodes. If you can see a nematode, you need to go to the local university and you need to seriously enter yourself into a research program, because you can't actually see these. There's nothing to be seen. They're very, very tiny little worms. Trust me, they're a lot less disgusting than mealybugs. The third thing I think you're going to notice with these guys, especially if it's in an indoor setting or a cold climate setting, they get long petioles. They get leggy. And this legginess can get extreme. I've had full-blown alocasias, big monster alocasias, that literally the petiole, they just flop over because they are reaching so far. And that's why I brought this Regal Shield out for you guys. Because this reach here, you would probably not believe me if I told you this was in a window. This is literally in a window and it's still reaching. And this is what these plants will do. And now imagine a larger leaf on this plant and it reaching. these petioles get thinner and thinner and thinner the closer to the top they go, and eventually if it keeps reaching and it gets even longer, it just ends up flopping and it keeps on going down. And I've had times where I've had very healthy alocasias or colocasias that are so leggy and so stretched out that they're just like literally like flopped over. So that is something you need to watch out for these guys. I know they say shade, and they are shade, but they are bright indirect light is what they should say for indoor plants. If you have these outside, shade, full shade, they are happy, 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 happy. If you have them in an indoor setting, they need to be right by obviously not a bright window, but if it's a bright window area, 6 feet back, and then watch the plant. If the plant starts leaning, you need to move it closer. The best case scenario for these guys, and the way that I find counteracts this the most, is actually putting them under a grow light and having the light come from directly above, which is what I'm doing with my Californian one here. And then I find it grows the straightest. Even in the window, these guys can lean, so top light, bright top light is the best scenario. Leggy petioles are very common in an indoor setting, and it just means it's not getting enough light. You need to move it closer to a window, or you need to put some sort of overhead light on top. The fourth issue is rot, and they are notorious for this. So they really like moisture, like they love moisture. They don't like to, necessarily dry out, but they hate moisture. They don't like anaerobic environments. So they like aerated, moist soil. Not kidding. So I find the best way to plant these guys is in a terracotta pot with heavy draining soil. So when I say heavy draining, lots of perlite, lots of wood chips, and then again, in a terracotta pot. So you're gonna have to water these more frequently because they like moisture, but I find that this is usually the best scenario. If you don't want to water it that much, because terracotta pots you do have to water probably 2 to 3 times more often than a plastic pot. You can do a plastic pot, and in this case, again, perlite, wood chips, and I used a coconut coir in this one. So I did a video on reviewing coconut coir. As many of you know, I didn't used to use coconut coir until this year, until you guys asked me to try it out and let me know my opinion on it. And so yeah, coconut coir is very, very quick at draining compared to peat moss. The problem with coconut coir, in my experience as well, is, and I should do a whole video, I have to do a whole video on the comparisons between the two, is they can get like a mold at the top. And I think that's due to lack of acidity. So you do want to watch out for that a little bit, but coconut coir, heavy amounts of aeration. And then the bottom of this pot is not your typical pot. So it is a ton of holes for drainage. And again, undersized pot versus an oversized pot. Your third, and honestly, the way I have a majority of mine planted is in leca. And I have intentions of doing a whole video. This is going to be my winter program for this channel on different potting mediums. But leca is a hydroponic soil-less medium. Technically it's soil because it's clay, whatever. We'll get into that different video. But leca is your other option, which is how I have quite a few of the ones back there, which I will show you footage of as well. If you are worried about the lack of moisture in your house, if you're worried about overwatering, if you're worried about underwatering, I would choose leca. It is very inexpensive. I will leave a link for that down below, but I like it. It's great for indoor plants. Anyone who's like, I wish I could have indoor plants, but I'll just kill them, leca. Seriously, leca. If you're new to indoor plants, leca. If you want an indoor-outdoor plant that you want to enjoy all year round, leca. That is the way to do it. So those are my recommendations for ensuring no rot. The most important thing with rot, however, is that a lot of people will fully water adapt their alocasias and their colocasias. This is not always possible. There's only certain types that can do this. So the African or the Californian one, for example, can be fully aquaticized, if that's even a word, but not all. I'll show you some other ones that I have kind of up on the corners there. Those ones are aquatic, but they're in leca, and the actual bulb isn't all the way in water. It's actually lifted out of water and it's above the water level. So while it looks like it's in the fish tank, it's technically not. The only one that's fully submerged in the fish tank is the Californian one. So don't just willy-nilly throw your alocasias and your colocasias in full water. Do not put them in a fully aquatic setting. A lot of the times it will rot, so you do need to be careful. And the last one before we kind of get into my collection and the story on all of them is leaf size. So if they don't get enough light, the leaves are small. If they get too much light, the leaves stay small. So you need to experiment. My recommendation is if the plant is leaning, so if your petioles are long, they're looking very skinny, and the plant is leaning, you need to move it closer to the light source. If you have very short and stumpy petioles, and the petioles are really nice and thick, and the leaves are small, then you need to move it away from the light source. So again, my Californian was in full sun in my pond all summer. It has very small leaves for the variety that I have, very thick, stumpy petioles. My Regal Shield has been indoors all summer, and it has very long, leggy petioles. Pretty good, pretty easy, self-explanatory. This guy is like the perfect, wherever he is right now is the perfect amount of sunlight and love for him. So you can see my petioles are nice and upright, they're very straight, and my leaf size, I mean, it's adequate considering the type of plant or the size of the plant right now, right? So it makes sense. Okay, so for anyone who's made it this far, let's talk about my collection. Some of these we're gonna have to walk to, but we'll start with the ones that are just sitting here in front of me. Yeah, and we'll get into the story. So some people are gonna laugh at this story, but anyone who knows me personally knows I'm not lying about this at all. You're probably like thinking this girl's on crack. So this is my African mask. For starters, this isn't my only African mask. I have other African masks, but this one I rescued from a greenhouse. And this guy was in full bore sun, and so he was like, he's dying basically, is what was happening here. And so this is the African mask. I can't remember, there's a more politically correct name for this plant. I'm not trying to be rude, I just don't know what it is. A mask alocasia, I'm not sure. So it is an alocasia, which breaks the rules. The petiole is sitting on top of the leaf. The petiole doesn't transform into leaf, but you can see like this is very pretty leaf. This one's starting to open slowly but surely. We're taking our time there apparently. And then this guy as well, he's just starting to open. So this guy was in really rough shape, and you can see here that this is the mealy bug hangout zone, and it just drives me nuts. That's why we use the nematodes. So you can see, very beautiful plant, and this is one of the easier alocasias, the easiest alocasia you can get. I heavily recommend this for an indoor plant scenario. This does not need to be directly by a window. This one actually sits on top of my piano, which does not get direct sun at all. And while we have a little bit of legginess petiole wise, it's not that bad. Really, it's not that bad. It could be much worse. And so this one doesn't have to be in heavy duty sun. It doesn't seem to lean on me. My petioles don't tend to spindle out. It does not like a lot of sun. It will put too much pressure on the plant, and it essentially will wilt away, burn, and die. But yeah, so this is super pretty, super easy. If you're looking for a plant to start with that's in the Araceae family, this would be the one that I would recommend. The reason why I think this one is so easy to care for is because anyone who has this plant is going to know what I'm talking about. It's very thick, fleshy leaves. And when you have that thick, fleshy leaf and less of that plump, tropical, fluffy leaf, you end up with less stomata and less sensitivity to changes in moisture. So this guy is much better at handling changes in the moisture environment around it. So great plant, doesn't like to be overwatered, not an aquatic plant, and just likes to be in soil. or LECA. You can do LECA with this guy as well. I can do a video on LECA transferring if you guys want. Just let me know in the comments. This one that I've been showing through the entire video, this is the one that Psych Truth Seeker is looking for. This is a, I don't know what this is. So I think it's a Regal Shield. I think it's a Regal Shield. I don't know if it's a Regal Shield. This plant popped up in my rubber tree 5 years ago. And it just kept popping up. And so my coworker was like, what is that plant that keeps on coming out of your rubber tree? And I was like, I don't know. I need to replant the rubber tree this year anyways. So I'm going to dig this plant out. Well, the rubber tree's roots weren't going to relinquish this plant to me. So all I could get out of the entire pot was these 2 stems. And now I'm just waiting for some action. Like I'm waiting for some more stems or something else to happen, but this is all I've gotten. And I get one, it comes up, a second one will start, and then the main one will die off. I think it's a Regal Shield. If you guys know what this is, let me know in the comments below. I believe it's a Regal Shield. But it literally just popped up in my potting soil. There's no separation here. This is completely flush, and then the petiole, again, it attaches to the bottom. And the bottom looks like this. So you can see it's very tropical-esque, very fluffy, puffy leaf. And yeah, this is this guy. He leans, he's leggy, he's lean, or he leans and he's leggy in my office, which is like an enormous amount of sun. And, but I find him pretty. So I don't know. I literally scrapped this guy out of a pot and he's beautiful, but I have no idea what he is. So the care for him is whatever he gets. So this next one, you're gonna laugh at me too. You're gonna be like, this biatch is lying. But I swear I'm not. This is what I believe to be a stingray alocasia. So I've got this beautiful, if I can get it to focus, zebra type petiole on it. And then I have these very beautiful, bizarre looking leaves that they go to this itty bitty point at the end. And I believe this is a stingray alocasia. I'll insert a photo of this. This one, again, I'm not even kidding you, popped up in a pot. It popped up in a Pelia Moon Valley out of nowhere. I'm not even kidding you. Just one day, that one popped up, and then a few weeks later, a different one popped up, which I have in my in LECA in the fish tank, and I'm pretty sure it's a stingray alocasia. I have this issue where alocasias pop up in my life nonstop, and they come out of the soil, and that's when I say that they don't need much rhizome to be able to survive. If your alocasia completely dies off, and there's nothing left of it, what you can do is you can technically cut it off and leave it and let the soil dry out, and then slowly start watering the soil just a little bit, not too much, and eventually this plant will come back. They go dormant sometimes as well. You can make them go dormant actually, and you eventually can bring them back just by slowly watering them and giving them light, and they will come back. And so that's why when you reuse potting soil or when you're buying plants from nurseries, some cases you may end up with an alocasia in there. It doesn't take much rhizome, it doesn't take much root, it doesn't take much bulb for these plants to come back from, but they will. You just have to give them time. So if you lose everything, Connor, promise me you will not throw that container out. You will just simply chop the plant back, and you're just going to leave it, because the new leaves that are going to come in might be a little bit thicker, a little bit more fleshy, and therefore they may be able to survive your environment just a bit better, and that's a good thing. Die off is not always a bad thing. So let's get into the next one. Okay, so this is, oh, you're not gonna be able to see very well, dang it. Well, the show must go on. So this is my Californian alocasia. This is my aquatic version of this plant, and this guy I have in LECA. So there's LECA inside of this, and then rocks on top to weigh it down because it will float otherwise. Leca is very flotaceous. It's clay. It's basically air heated formed clay. So this is my Californian, and like I said, he's in here, and you can see how he has this stem is hugging this stem. And like I said, when they don't get they get too much sun, they get a very stocky, very heavy duty stem to them. And so you can see this is a very compact stem with not very big leaves. That's not big leaves for this variety of plant. Then I'm just gonna flip you guys around here because you're not gonna be able to see otherwise. This is the other setup I have here. So this is my leca setup. Again, my leca, my roots for these plants, this is the other stingray I have here. Or what I believe to be a stingray. Not just the coolest. Look at that, isn't that unbelievable? That's beautiful. So this guy, I have him in here, but again, I don't have him that deep. He's pretty superficial. Oh shit. I had to catch that before my fish tried to eat it. And again, this guy, he's not very deep in there. He's just on the surface. The water's touching the roots, but it's not touching the bulb. The bulb's actually like right there. You can see it. And that's where he's gonna stay here for a while. He's loving it here. He's happy here. I think this guy's happier here in a leca scenario than the one that's in the dirt. And you guys can let me know what your thoughts are, but that's my opinion, is that this plant is happier and healthier here. And again, the light is right on top of these plants to avoid that legginess and to get these nice big leaves here. And then this is my Velvet Elvis, specimen 1 and specimen 2. So see, Connor, don't feel bad. My Velvet Elvises are next to nothing here, but you can see there's some new, I gotta move my hand out of the way. There is some new stalks starting to come up here, some new roots. And again, I have him in leca, but my roots, my rhizome, that's all I have left. There's literally the rhizome of the Velvet Elvis. That is out of the water, and I just have it in the leca, and just the moisture from the leca is enough to appease this plant. So that's how I have them in there. If I have root rot, guys, or a sick plant, this is actually my rehab section. So you can see my I have more rehab bins. These are literally just soap holders for the shower, and I put leca in them. I put them in the fish tank, and depending on how bad the situation is, so this guy's on the road to recovery. This guy is actually on the road to recovery too. I know the Triostar doesn't look like he's on the road to recovery, but he is. I got him off of Facebook Marketplace. Someone was just giving him for free, but he has root rot. And then these two here, he's not on the bad side. He's actually doing very well. This guy, I should post the video of this. This guy had heat damage from a mail shipping, and he really was in rough shape. So the rougher the shape the plant is in, this is a bit of a side note, I will put the filter for the tank blasting up into this. So the filter is actually blasting into this area. And what happens is it adds a lot of aeration, and it makes the roots very happy. So the rebound is much, much quicker. So that is literally all I have for you guys today. This video was incredibly long considering it's just about alocasias and colocasias, but I wanted to make sure I covered absolutely everything about these plants because I know they can be a headache for a lot of people, and especially if you're someone who spent a lot of money on one of the rare varieties, thinking this would be an easy little experiment. I'm here for you. I feel your pain. I've been through 10 years of pain with these plants, and so yeah. I understand where you're coming from. If you like this video, be sure to give this a thumbs up. Psych and Connor, if this helps you out, please let me know in the comments below. If it didn't, contact me on Instagram, Facebook, wherever it was you initially contacted me. We can help you out a little bit further. And I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Grab your Gardening in Canada merch. Can't believe I'm saying that. I feel crazy. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.